What's up, everybody? It's the Alex Leak and Friends NFL podcast, back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak. We got Bret back on the show. Bret, good to have you on.
Yeah, glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
And we've got Lions insider, analyst for Sports Illustrated, Logan Lamorandier. Am I saying that right?
Nice work. I was waiting to hear you say it because usually that's the first question people always ask is how to pronounce it. So good work. Yeah.
I was a little nervous on how to say it, but I think it worked out.
Nailed it.
So you cover the Lions for Sports Illustrated, right? What else do you all do?
Yeah. So, mostly just Lions, but also the NFL draft as well. That's always been big into the draft, ever since I was a kid. It was just some weird thing that I always liked to do, back when before internet, get the draft magazines, and it was just always great having all the information on players. And it's just kind of been, a hobby of mine for such a long time. And it's just nice that now I actually get to write about it and, talk to people like you guys just about the draft and, Lions in general. But yeah, pretty much those two things. Those are it.
That's cool. Now, you had to be pretty pumped for this draft a couple weeks ago. This was one of the craziest drafts I've ever been a part of and witnessed and prepped for. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. And, it was a little bit different this year just because there wasn't as much film on guys and there was a lot of opt-outs. And it made things a little bit more difficult than in years past just to get information. It was always nice, too, having the combine just to go back and, I have a standardized testing and everyone's at a level playing field and you can just look up all their times there. But this year it was really took a lot of digging to put together all the, these pro days that were coming together. And you always have to do that with previous years too. But with no combine, it was just not great to find to just have like one spot to have all the numbers of testing and everything like that. But yeah. It was a crazy draft too. There was a lot of, really it started at pick 3, just which way the 49ers were going to go. And from the Lions perspective, I really like Penei Sewell, how he felt to them. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's kind of bittersweet it was over because I was getting to the point where I was sick of mock drafts, but at the same time, I just wanted it to happen. And, but it is a lot of fun. I love draft season.
Now, speaking of the Lions, we're a couple of weeks, from the draft, away from the draft. What was your reaction on how the Lions did in their draft class?
Yeah, so overall, I really liked it. Penei Sewell falling to them at 7. He was kind of like my dream target for them just because a tackle is it's one of the, premier spots and they cost a lot of money on the free agent market. And then you have, in my eyes, Sewell, who was a top 3 player, he was actually my second rated player in this entire draft. And to have him fall to 7, I just couldn't be happier for the Lions. And really the rest of the way there, or the rest of the draft, it was just drafting the best player available. And they added football players, but the guys that have great upside too, just in terms of athleticism. And that's something that the previous regime under Bob Quinn just seemed like he was allergic to a little bit, was drafting athletes. So it's nice to have a GM who just went true to his board. And yes, there's going to be varying opinions on, who is the best player available, but I really think that they took in their minds who the best player available was. And in a rebuild, year 1 of a rebuild, it doesn't really matter who they come away with as long as they're a good football player, because they need really good football players and just difference makers on just about every spot on the roster.
Nice. I like it. Go ahead, Bret.
Yeah, so that pick, the Sewell pick, I think we're all happy with. We saw, though, there was video of the Lions possibly trading up at 4 with the Eagles. Was that likely going to be due to getting Sewell with the Bengals possibly taking him at 5, or was that somewhere else?
Yeah, you kind of put the pieces together and you can kind of come to that assumption that, yeah, it was to trade up to get Sewell. I know there was reports floating around, a week before the draft saying the Lions were talking to try to move up. And it was just interesting that it was for Jamar Chase. But I think the entire time it sounded like Sewell was always their main target. And you could just see it in the draft room, the Lions draft room, once they selected Sewell, how excited they were. And I have to imagine they were trying to trade up to get Sewell, and they didn't really know what the Bengals were going to do, whether it be Chase and Sewell. If I were the Bengals GM, I would have taken Sewell, but They took Jamar Chase, who's also a good football player, but I just feel like Joe Burrow could have used a little bit more protection on that offensive line.
I'm also surprised the Dolphins didn't go Sewell as well and went Waddle. Either of them could have used a tackle like Sewell, and I agree he was very high on my big board, of top talents. Were you surprised at all? There was some rumors floating around that the Lions might consider going quarterback, Justin Fields or something like that. Were you thinking that at all? Was that an option? What are your thoughts on that?
I think so. Even Brad Holmes said in the pre-draft process, if the right guy is there, they would consider it. But I just think the right guy, they pretty much knew would probably be, it was probably just Trevor Lawrence. And from the sounds of it, the Lions liked Trey Lance, but he went 3 to the San Francisco 49ers, and that was kind of it. But you just look at what they did with Jared Goff. They traded for Jared Goff, and yes, a lot of people just assumed that the Lions got an extra first-round pick for Goff's contract, and I don't necessarily think the Lions were thinking that way, because when they restructured Goff's contract, not only that shows a little bit more faith in Goff, but that also makes more dead money down the line if they were to cut him. So I think the Lions, again, I guess another quote from Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes both said they wanted a team first before a quarterback as well. So to me, I thought it was unlikely, but you never know. There's so many smoke screens in draft season. You just truly never know. But based off of everything they were saying before the draft, I just felt like if Sewell or Jamar Chase or somehow Kyle Pitts fell, I just felt like there was quite a few players they would take before a quarterback.
Okay, I like it. Go ahead, Bret.
So with the next few picks after that, the Lions ended up going defense with a couple tackles. We're building there in the trenches, something that hasn't necessarily been done. Like, how do you feel about the coaching staff and the front office with their mindset being like really taking out kneecaps or whatnot?
Yeah. So with that's going to be the quote, for the entire Dan Campbell tenure during in Detroit, it's always going to be about biting kneecaps. But I like the defensive line picks, because really you look at the players the Lions had along the defensive line, they were so specific for Matt Patricia's gap control scheme, and they're not gap shooters, they're not penetrators. They just aren't really, you put them on a lot of other teams and they're not going to be starters. And the Lions had, have some decent bodies, I guess, up in the defensive interior, but they don't have anyone like Onwuzurike or like McNeil that can actually get to the quarterback and have a really quick first step and disrupt. And so to me, I was really happy that the Lions, yes, defensive tackle maybe wasn't the highest need, but for the type of attacking 3-4 defense that the Lions appear like, or at least seem like they want to run, they need those type of players, and it helps the linebackers out a ton. As we all know, you have to have a pass rush to get, any success in the secondary. That makes the corners and safeties life real miserable when you don't have a pass rush. So I like that defensive back-to-back, defensive interior selections, just because if it's going to make the quarterback super uncomfortable if you're getting inside pressure, and it should, in theory, also make your outside rushers look better as well, because if they get around the edge, the quarterback's not going to be able to step up. So I really like both. I really liked Akeem McNeil, or Liam McNeil, I should say. He was just someone who's super rare in just his skill set, what he has, his first step. His 10-yard split was faster than Onwuzurike's, who is 30 pounds lighter than him. So he's a really good athlete. And Onwuzurike himself is a very good athlete as well, and is just a super aggressive type of player that you really like. And I think that will really help the Lions defense in general by just adding those two spots.
Nice. Yeah, we mentioned building through the trenches. There's a big turnover in the wide receiver position for Detroit, going from, losing Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, Danny Amendola. Now they're led by Tyrell Williams, Rashad Perriman, and they take Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round. Do you like the pick of St. Brown in the 4th round? Do you think maybe they should have taken a wide receiver in the 2nd or 3rd a little earlier? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's just one of those things. If it was a little bit different of a situation for the Lions, where they had more on the line for this season and they had that gaping hole at receiver, then yeah, maybe you would select a receiver a little bit earlier. But just in year one of a rebuild, expectations are low. Just take players that you're comfortable with and you think that can be great. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think he was like my 116th player on my big board, and he was drafted 113. So it was really right around where I thought he would go. Nice. And he has some nice qualities. He's not super athletic, which again, I'm kind of a sucker for athleticism. Especially at the receiver spot, but he's very like NFL ready. He's a savvy route runner. He can catch contested catches. He knows how to get open despite maybe having a little bit of athletic limitations relatively. But I was totally fine waiting until the fourth round, because you look every year at the deep draft class at the receiver position, and there's so many free agents that are always available. And this year was a perfect example of how many, just really good receivers were out on the open market. And I think it's, in my eyes, it's a little bit overvalued of a position in the NFL where they're paying these guys big money, but there's always guys, the drop off from, the elite guys to like the second tier. There's plenty of those second tier players. So I'm totally fine with just going into this year with what they got. Yeah, it might not look pretty, but you can, once the Lions start building up and having more talent, you can start inserting wide receivers from the draft. And we've seen it, plenty of times where there's been rookies that come in and excel right away if they're given enough volume and opportunity. So I was perfectly content with what the Lions did and waiting on a receiver, and just, you can't fill all the positions at once with how many holes are on this team. So you can kind of kick that can at the receiver spot down the road.
Okay, I like it. And yeah, speaking of that, Tyrell Williams isn't like the sexiest acquisition, but I think he's underrated, like gonna be a big impact and could be a pretty good weapon for the Lions this year.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And before his shoulder injury last year, he was, especially a couple years ago, he had a super hot 6-week start, and then it's just been the injuries that have kind of derailed him. Yeah. And if he can stay healthy, and especially having, wide receiver one type of targets, I think he can be very productive. And to me, again, it's just going back to that whole, you can find receivers like Williams for pretty cheap and you still get good production out of them. And nice. So that's the route I would go.
All right, go ahead, Bret.
We ended up taking, a running back shortly after these last few picks we talked about, which then, it was Jefferson. It ended up leading to Kerryon Johnson's release. How do you feel about the running back room that we have now going into 2021 with the offensive line that we have built there?
Yeah, so the offensive line, that's the big component that really I feel like should make a big difference, because Adam Sewell, with just his mauler mentality and being able to run block, Jonah Jackson had a pretty solid rookie year, and you hope that he can continue to develop on the left side. And I thought he was pretty pro ready coming in, and you hope that he can just continue to develop. But you look at their tackles and their center, and they have a pretty good trio there. And when you pretty much any running back, I feel like if you have a decent line and you have a running back with good vision, you're going to be able to, at least be a threat. And DeAndre Swift, it'd be nice to see him get the ball a little bit more. And by all accounts, it sounds like that's going to be the case. And Jamal Williams is just super reliable, does everything well, in all facets of the game. So Kerryon, the release of him, it did catch me off guard a little bit. Just because of the timing. I don't know why they wouldn't take him into training camp, but you look at it, he's going into the last year of his deal. Last year, he was pretty much just a pass blocking specialist, which is important. You need to have a guy that can do that. And the Lions have a guy that can do that now in Jamal Williams. He's also very good at it too. So if Kerryon was a backup pass protector, and that's his main role, I can see why they might want to just let him go, because he hasn't looked like the same individual as we saw his rookie year. You look at his burst and kind of his agility. He was never super agile to begin with, but he always had great burst, and that was kind of his calling card. And his knee injury is kind of, I think he's lost a step. That's fair to say. But so I'm not upset about that at all. It's, looking long term, I'm more than happy to have these younger players come in and see what they got, because Kerryon wasn't in the long term plans. But again, going back to, just the timing of it. That was the only part where I was like, what? Why? Can't just wait till training camp. But who knows? I'm not all that concerned about it. And I wish Kerryon the best. He's a good dude.
Yeah, I kind of feel for Kerryon. Like I'm a Bears fan, but I cover the whole league, and I watched him at Auburn, and I remember him coming out in the draft, and I was like, Lions got a guy, a steal here, and I'm always a big fan of Kerryon. So it sucks to see the injuries catch up to him, and hopefully he turns it around in Philly.
Yeah, I know. I hope he does well, but at the same time, coming from a Lions perspective, it's like if he does well in Philly, you're like, what were we doing? Jeez, come on, Lions.
Now the Lions are having a whole new coaching staff going into 2021. A rookie head coach in Dan Campbell, Anthony Lynn, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. What do you expect to see out of the Lions, the 2021 Lions? What will be their brand of football? How do you think they're going to approach it?
Yeah, so with any new head coach, especially one that doesn't even have any play calling experience, Dan Campbell was an assistant head coach and a tight ends coach, but I really think they brought him in for culture and just to build around, bringing in his type of coaches and a lot of former players. But Anthony Lynn, it sounds like what he wants to do is have, kind of a multiple offense. And I think the run game is going to be important, but it sounds like they're going to have some spread concept as well. So as long as they remain versatile, I think that'll be really good, and just put Goff in situations that are beneficial to him and try to keep him out of third and long situations where he has to make tight windows throws, because he's not very good at doing that. He needs guys to be open. So I think it's going to be a pretty well-balanced attack on offense. On defense, they're calling it a 3-4 base, but I really think the base defense now is pretty much just the nickel, where you have 5 DBs on the field. And you look at the personnel the Lions have brought in and the coaches that they have, I think you're going to see a lot of different looks, which I like. I thought we were going to get that out of Matt Patricia and his multiple, in air quotes, defense that wasn't very multiple. It's just going to be really nice to have a defense that seems to really emphasize attacking and getting to the quarterback and not asking your linebackers, not needing them to be 250 pounds just to take on blocks head on. It's more so they want their linebackers freed up due to, the linemen up front crashing gaps and just being disruptive, and the linebackers able to run free. And it really any defense other than Matt Patricia's I'm excited about. So I think it's going to be an aggressive style on defense, and then on offense, well-balanced. And they say things now of what they want their offense to look like, but I'll kind of believe it when I see it, just because they do have to play to their strengths, and their strengths is going to be running the ball, I think.
Yeah. Okay, I like it. Go ahead, Bret.
Okay, so on the day of the draft, Adam Schefter drops the bomb about the Packers and Rodgers and all that news. What do you think? What do you think about that, and how it impacts the North and the rest of the league?
Yeah. I think I tweeted out, just when I think draft day can't get any better, because my entire life has been the Green Bay Packers having a Hall of Fame quarterback and just always being in contention for the division. So I couldn't be happier that this is all unfolding. And I just hope to God that Jordan Love isn't, the second coming of Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think he is, fingers crossed. But yeah, nothing would make me more happy to see Aaron Rodgers out of Green Bay, because I think they have a talented roster, but Aaron Rodgers really has always carried that team well past, I think, what their overall talent is.
Yeah, he plugs a lot of holes on that team. And I don't know if you saw, just right before this, we got on here, the Packers signed Blake Bortles. So
yeah. Yeah, Blake Bortles, watch out on NFC North.
We're in trouble now. All right. Looking at, so the NFC North is getting quite a turnaround. Like, if you look at the Bears and the Vikings, Aaron Rodgers might be out in Green Bay. You got the Bears and Vikings both took quarterbacks in the draft. Bears traded up to 11 and took Justin Fields. The Vikings took Kellen Mond in the 3rd round. And there was also talk about the Vikings being interested in Fields as well before the trade-up. What do you make of how the picture of the NFC North is changing with all these new quarterbacks? And it seems it's hard to get a grip on what the North is going to look like, this season.
It really is. And I think a lot of it depends on Rodgers. But Overall, the NFC North in terms of the draft, I really liked what the Bears did. I think, getting Justin Fields, that was one of my worst nightmares, again, being a Lions fan, just because the Bears for such a long time have had such a complete team outside of really that quarterback spot. And Justin Fields, I really liked Justin Fields. And if he can come in and just get that offense humming, that defense, they lost a couple pieces, but they still should be very good. So I like the Bears a lot this season. I think they're going to definitely be in contention for the North. And the Vikings, they still have plenty of good players as well. And they also had a solid draft. And Kellen Mond, I think he's more of a developmental guy at this time, probably behind Cousins. But, Cousins, I know he kind of gets a bad rap because he's not elite, but he's also not a bad quarterback either. But so they're probably going to be, typical Vikings for, probably a little better than 500 type of thing. And, who knows? And the NFC North without Rodgers, I think it might be wide open. I'm not expecting the Lions to be in that race, but you never know. If Matt Patricia was as bad as I think he is, and a different coaching scheme in Detroit can change enough, who knows? Maybe they can get 9 wins. I'm telling Lions fans, don't get your hopes up, but you just never know. It is the NFL.
Well, quick question on that. So the Bears, they did get a little worse on defense, replacing Kyle Fuller with Desmond Trufant, who was in Detroit. What are your thoughts on Trufant, and how big of a drop-off is that going to be from Fuller to Desmond Trufant?
So Trufant, he's been struggling with injuries a lot in the past few years. So that's his biggest thing. And even when he was on the field with Detroit, he was not good. But I will preface that by saying any Detroit corner in Matt Patricia's defense did not look good because they're basically on an island, man up, more often than just about every team in the league, and they have no pass rush. And when you're trying to guard someone for 7 seconds, it's not going to look good. So Trufant, he's not on Fuller's level. If he can kind of have a bounce back year, which I think he could in a different scheme that's just more favorable for corners, I think he can be okay. But he's if you base last year, and he didn't look good last year, so I don't want to disappoint you too much, but he was not very good.
You were like, I was like, when I saw Desmond Trufant last year, I was not impressed. So.
No, there was nothing there. But again, even Darius Slay, who was a all-pro corner, had his worst years in Patricia's defense as well. So it's like kind of take whatever you see in the Lions secondary with a grain of salt.
All right. Go ahead, Bret.
Well, I think here we got the NFL schedule released tonight, and looks like we're going to see another Lions-Bears Thanksgiving game.
Yep.
Any notable games that you're looking forward to that we're going to have matchups with, or, as far as obviously we don't know when they're going to be, but we know who we're playing.
Yeah. So pretty much I always look at the division rivals in years that you expect to be more competitive. That's when I care a little bit more. But it's always the division rivals, and really, there's not anyone I would say that on the Lions schedule where I'm super looking forward to it outside of the Rams game. And that's just to see what Matthew Stafford can do against his former team. And Jared Goff will also be going against his former team. So it's just be good drama, and, it'll be good to see Stafford back. But I can't say I'm super pumped up for one game more than any of them outside of that Rams game.
Okay.
Are you going to be paying attention to the Rams, see what Stafford does, maybe how far he can take that Rams team?
Yeah, the Lions have draft picks riding on it too. So as much as I want to root for Stafford, at the same time, you hope they don't do too well because the Lions need that better first-round draft pick. But it'll be nice just because, when the Lions are usually in that early slot on Sundays, the Rams being out on the West Coast, they're usually playing a little later, and so that'll probably be the game I watch. I usually just, NFL Game Pass it and Red Zone, just watch it all type of thing. Right. But with the Rams on, I might be paying a little bit closer to attention to them.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to week 1. I believe the Bears go to the Rams on primetime Sunday night. That's not going to be so.
Should be a good one.
Yeah. But all right, well, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on the show. It was great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was good stuff, and we'll have to do it again soon.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
For sure.
Guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and peace out.